Well, returning to our top story now, as we've been reporting, the Prime Minister Anthony Albanese will be meeting with China's President Xi Jinping tonight at the G20 summit in Bali. It comes after the US President Joe Biden held his own face-to-face meeting with China's President yesterday. For more analysis, joining us live is Will Glasgow, the North Asia correspondent at the Australian newspaper. Will, appreciate your time. Thank you. Firstly, on that meeting between Presidents Xi and Biden, the tone seemed pretty warm for leaders whose countries have seen real tensions in recent years.
Yeah. I had to kind of check the date on the transcript, and the same on the pictures of. I haven't seen Xi Jinping smile as widely, I don't think ever, as in that photo with Joe Biden from yesterday's meeting. So, yeah, very warm for the cameras, and at least in those opening remarks that was said. Look, the readouts from the meeting, though, make it clear this talk was more than 3 hours long, and sure, it's much more constructive than has ever happened so far in the Biden administration. I mean, this is the first time the two have met since Joe Biden was elected president, although they've met many times before that when they were both vice presidents. But yeah, the transcripts both sides put out from the more than 3 hour long meeting do make it clear. Look, we're not in some utopia. The big, deep structural issues that were there before the meeting remain, and the number one on that list is Taiwan.
Yeah, and what about Anthony Albanese's meeting a bit later today? Can we expect any real breakthroughs there, do you think?
Yeah, I think breakthroughs, I wouldn't use that word, right? I mean, I suppose it depends how you measure it, right? I mean, that the meeting is happening is a breakthrough in a way, but, that we call that a breakthrough now as a measure of how low this relationship's sunk. I mean, it's in at least until a few months ago, the worst state it had ever been since recognition 50 years ago. So, yeah, it's improving, but from a really low base, right? The meeting happening is really important, and it's really good, just as the Biden-Xi meeting is really important and was really good. Dialogue is excellent, especially with such real concern about things escalating into a conflict or something. When they're talking, the two sides, that makes that a lot less likely. With this Australian meeting for Prime Minister Albanese, what he can expect, or what's realistic, he's made it very clear that the ending at least some of, if not all of, the blacklisted exports into China, that more than $20 billion a year of product that used to go in there, that's a key priority for him. Now, there's some reason that China might want to do that, right? I mean, when Xi Jinping ordered that ban back in 2020, coal prices weren't where they are now. It's in China's interest that it could import Australia's thermal coal and coking coal. So let's see. I mean, I think that's possible. Other things, though, that they've banned are much more complicated. They actually imposed a form of tariff on barley. That's another product that's way more expensive now because of the Ukraine war than when they imposed that tariff back in 2020. But it's complicated for the Chinese to unwind it. So, we'll see. You're not going to hear when Prime Minister Anthony Albanese comes out of the meeting, do not expect that he's going to say, wine's back, coal's back, it's all fixed. But we'll see. I think if the tone's positive, perhaps in the coming months and into next year, China will allow some of these things back into China, at least the ones that are in China's interests.
Yeah, it seems like it'll be a slowly approach. More broadly, Will, just talk us through the agenda for the G20. As you reported today, it looks like a consensus statement on Russia's invasion of Ukraine seems pretty unlikely.
Yeah. I mean, these are consensus documents, and look, Vladimir Putin's not there, but his foreign minister's there. So I think the idea that his foreign minister's going to put Russia's name on a consensus statement is just, it's lunatic. It's not going to happen. So, I mean, what's likely is that Indonesian President Jokowi will put out a chairman's statement for the event. But we'll find out, as to what other language, what language he uses in there, whether he's going to be critical in a veiled way towards Russia. I mean, that's what the stuff of the meeting comes down to how these debates go. I mean, some promising signs in the lead up to this are that China is, at least Premier Li, Xi Jinping's deputy, in the earlier meeting in Cambodia before this, in the closed door sessions, there were reports that he was not directly critical of Russia's invasion, but speaking very firmly against the breaching of countries' sovereignty, and also speaking very explicitly against the use of nuclear weapons, which people in the room took as quite pointed towards China. But again, I think everyone is expecting too much if they think China's going to walk away from Russia at the G20. I think they'll give them cover so that they don't, they're not entirely isolated on the statement, partly because, rightly or wrongly, Xi Jinping backed Vladimir Putin in this one. I mean, whether he knew quite what was coming is a source of ongoing debate, but they've given cover for the Russians since February, and they're not going to, in front of the whole world, put their name to something that looks like China's had a backflip. So I think no communique for sure. We'll see what words President Jokowi puts out himself, and then what everyone else says, right? I mean, just because a joint statement doesn't happen doesn't mean that our Prime Minister, the US President, Europeans, everyone else, doesn't stop them talking. So, I think we're going to get lots of different accounts of this G20 meeting rather than one single unified one.
We'll be watching closely. Will Glasgow, really appreciate your insights. Thank you.